Sports God TV, where we talk sports like religion. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I upload. Share the content, jump in the comments. Let's get it cracking. Yeah, and just like you see in the title, man, description, it's basically talking about Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, Crawford seemingly is backing down from a rematch with Errol the Truth Spence Jr. at 154. Now, directly after the fight, Jim Gray asked both fighters, will there be a rematch? Both agreed, yes, contractually, it is in the contract for a rematch. Errol, the Truth Spence Jr., specifically said that he is hopeful that the fight can be done at 154. Immediately after the fight, he updated his Instagram and changed it to 28 wins, 1 loss, 22 knockouts. Still the big fish, still the truth, but now 154 pounds. So he has already announced to the world that that's where he was going. Terrence got asked the same question by Jim Gray in the ring after his dominating performance that he had over Errol the Truth Spence Jr. And he said himself that it was hard to make the weight at 147, and 154 seemed like the move for him next. And he would be open to the rematch. With that being said, that's setting the bar to the discussion today. There was an interview that came out with Terrence Crawford stating that in the contract, the fighter had to notify the other fighter and the fighter's camp that they could not make the weight in writing. That's what he at least said far as from a contractual standpoint. My thing is, if Errol Spence Jr. had openly said in front of millions of people after his humiliating loss on live TV, said that he would like the fight to be at 154. It is hard for him to make the weight. And so did Terrence Bud Crawford say the same thing. Why hasn't the fight been announced, number one? Or number two, why has it seemed like Terrence Bud Crawford has backpedaled and is kind of contemplating if he want to have the fight at 147 or 154? You got the floor.
Well, I don't know why he may appear to be backtracking or trying to avoid a fight at 154. Who says it's not going to take place at 154? It may have to, or it may will. It may fight. They may fight at 154. But one thing we have to realize is that in the contract, as you stated, he has to say, Errol Spence has to say that he cannot make the weight. Has he done that? If he has not done that, why hasn't he done it? Regardless of what was said after the fight, regardless of what was said to Jim Gray, the reality is that the fight is based on contracts that are signed, not what people say out of their mouths in front or in a ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reality of the situation. And so it's important that Errol Spence, if he wants to fight at 154, that he has to give a reason why he wants it at 54, and that is because it is hard for him to make 47.
Correct. Now, the thing with that is Errol Spence Jr. Well, first of all, do we even know it says that in the contract? We as people, as boxing fans from the outside looking in, don't necessarily know for sure if that's what it says in the contract. This all could be smoke and mirrors coming from Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, I'm gonna give Terrence Bud Crawford the benefit of the doubt. He seems like an open, honest guy, and I wouldn't see really nothing for him to gain from saying those things as far as it being in writing when it's clear that both men were struggling to make the weight, though they both did, and they put on a tremendous show, even though it was one-sided. They both stepped in the ring and fought each other like true champions do. But it's clear that Earl has made it known that he can't make the weight no more. And so, with that being said, how come now, a month after the fight, it has now been revealed by Terrence Bud Crawford that the fighter had to notify the other fighter in writing that he could not make the weight. Me personally, I think this is a leverage play by Terrence Bud Crawford. What's your thoughts?
Well, leverage and using leverage is to the advantage of the user. So you should always use leverage when you are able to. Now, it gets back to the main point of this discussion. Has Earl done what he is obligated to do in the contract? If he has not done that, you are saying and mentioned that Bud had said and brought this up as a stipulation now. Why now? Well, it wasn't a social media topic until now. So it is addressed now because now it is being talked about throughout social media. And so he's kind of in a position where he's forced to address it. And that's why probably that he's now addressing it. But Earl Spence has to take care of his obligations and then it go from there. The reality is I think that Bud is a better fighter. And because he is a better fighter, he clearly dominated the fight. He is in the leveraged position. Earl Spence is not in the leveraged position. And because he's not in the leveraged position, he has to deal with one who got his face bashed in.
All right. Okay. Well, that night, that man was the better man. That is undoubtedly the truth.
Okay.
Uh, it was. And back to the leverage part, I do believe that Terrence has more to gain if he stays at 147 because those belts carry money. We all know that. That is a reason why, if it all came down and the showdown had to go back to 147, I think Earl would make the weight if he was forced to because of the power that those belts would give him. Because I'm knowing that he has lost a lot of leverage or power, so to speak, from losing those belts. When you're a unified champion in any division on your way to making history and being undisputed, uh, you gain a lot. And so I don't know if Errol is really worried about the belts at this point in time at 147. I just
Mm-hmm.
think that he wants the revenge and know in his mind that it would be a different fight because he said it on multiple occasions that it would be a different fight. Salute to Earl Spence because he did not make an excuse about the weight per se. But he would like the fight at 154. Do you see a different type of fight if those two fighters fight at 154?
Not really. Uh, it'll
That
be
was
a
quick,
different
man.
fight in the sense that he may be able to do better than he did in the first fight, but I think the skill level is too much of a difference. I didn't realize that skill level was that much of a difference until they fought each other. the skill level was too much of a difference. You can say, okay, well, the fighter was drained. I'm not a boxer. I never was a professional boxer. And I mean, I was real young when I used to box in the amateurs. So to say that I know what it's like to be weight drained, I would be lying. But even with that, the skill level was just too vast. I think
Mhm.
styles make fights, as they say. And Earl, even though other fighters did better against Bud seemed like he came better prepared for this fight than any other fight I seen him fight, because he was a defensive fighter in the early part of the fight, and his style, I think, is just the perfect style to be a victor over Earl Spence. Earl Spence is not used to fighting somebody that can fight off of their back foot. And the way Bud is able to punch off of his back foot or going backwards, he can fight any type of fight. He can fight inside, he can fight outside, he fights at angles. He's just a very good fighter. And Earl Spence, his fighting style is tailor-made for Bud. And so unless he gets a lucky punch, which he's not a one punch knockout person, unless he gets a lucky punch, I don't see anything different.
Now, with that being said, all of what you just said, does that make Terrence Crawford get overconfident inside of the squared circle against a fighter like Earl Spence, considering the fact that he did dominate the fight from, I would say, round 2 on, even though I think Earl did a good job in round 3, and even came back a little bit better. Round 3. It was round 3 because he got knocked down in round 2. So round 1 and round 3, I think that those were Earl best rounds. But with that being said, Terrence handedly dominated the fight from all aspects, as you said. But with the knowledge of knowing that he can beat Earl in the southpaw stance, well, at least he beat Earl in the southpaw stance, and like you say, fighting off the back foot. Do you think Errol Spence, now that he know what to expect from Terrence Bud Crawford, will be able to? Now, when I say make adjustments, I don't mean change his whole fighting style, because I'm with most boxing people on this. There's not too much that I can see uh, changing as far as Earl goes, as far as his style goes. But there are adjustments to where, as though maybe certain punch placement, like the basic to the body shot up top, what he kept doing, and that's how Terrence was able to punch down on him on that first knockout, and actually in that first knockout when he came over the top with the straight jab. If Errol make those adjustments, those small tweaks in his game when it comes to his punch placement, where he throwing his punches at, and keep his balance under him, do you really see Terrence Bud Crawford hurting Earl like he hurt Earl when he knew when Earl was off balance, when he caught him with them shots? Two of those knockdowns was to me was when Earl was off balance.
Well, see, I mean, Bud Crawford is a puncher. His last 12 fights demonstrates that he's a puncher. He's grown into his body. He's a puncher. So I believe, yes, he can hurt Earl Spence. Earl Spence never really, like I said, he's a very fundamentally sound fighter. He never really faced a puncher that
Mm-hmm.
really punched him until
Mm-hmm.
he fought Bud Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think he can hurt him. And so, because Bud is going to hit him,
Mm-hmm.
and he already proved that he can hurt him. So I think, why wouldn't he hurt him now? 154, 7 more pounds is not going to stop the feeling of those punches.
Mm-hmm.
So he may be able to absorb them a little better, because he may not be as weight drained, quote unquote. But that still doesn't affect his skill level. He can make adjustments, but Bud can make adjustments too. And as Sean Porter said, he pretty much laid it out, not in these exact words, but Bud Crawford is the most craftiest fighter he ever fought.
Mm-hmm.
This man is a very crafty fighter, and he is a fighter that makes adjustments. Errol Spence is, like I said, a fundamentally sound fighter that pretty much does what he do.
Mm-hmm.
And you either gonna get crushed or you may luck up and beat Earl Spence. But he does what he does. Bud Crawford does a multitude of things. As his one of his trainers said, he got multiple tools in his toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And he used the right tools for the job. So now he may come out, he may not even come out southpaw. Who knows?
Right.
Bud can do that. He can make those adjustments. He make the adjustments as needed. So Earl Spence can plan for what Bud did, but Bud may come out and do something totally different.
Right.
He has
But
that skill level.
okay, yeah, that's a good point. But with the pressure, I feel like Earl didn't apply as much pressure as he normally does uh, in that fight. He tried to apply it via first round, and he was applying it when he got caught with that uppercut on the ropes that put him down. But other than that, I feel like if Earl Spence, it's almost like when you fight Floyd Mayweather, right? Every fighter that had some type of success against Floyd pressured him, whether if it was Judah, whether if it was Madonna, whether if it was Castillo, or and that's to keep Bud. What I did notice about Bud, even without fully extending his arm, his short punches are sharp and they're crisp and they can hurt you up close. But I'm saying that if Earl closed that distance and don't let Bud use that 2-inch reach that he has, do you per se? Because me personally, I feel like if he's up close and personal with Bud and applying that pressure and cutting the ring off, because Bud uses the ring too, uh, I feel like not only will it be a better fight, but if he get up close and personal to Bud and not allow Bud to get off of some of the crafty punches that he was able to get off because Earl didn't know what to expect. I think not only is the fight better, because we all know Bud Crawford can get hurt. And Earl punches hard enough to hurt Terrence, but he just wasn't able to display it that night. So I'm saying at 154, Earl can have the same game plan, and so can Bud. But if Earl closes that distance a lot faster and stop trying to outbox Bud, which I don't think he can do by no means necessary, I think it'll be a different fight. And he I won't call it a puncher's chance because, like you said, I haven't really seen Earl knock nobody out with one punch. It comes from an accumulation of punches. But I do see a scenario that plays out to where as though he could hurt Bud Crawford.
Oh, I mean, anybody can get hurt in the ring. So, and Earl, like you said, does punch hard enough to hurt somebody. So I'm not saying that Bud can't get hurt, and I'm not saying Bud can't lose. But what I am saying is I'm pretty sure you heard the saying, it's easier said than done. And you keep using the word not allow Bud. It ain't about not allowing Bud, because if you don't know how to stop him from doing something, it don't make a difference whether you allowing him. You ain't allowing him. He doing what he want to do.
Yeah.
It ain't about you allowing him to do it, because of course you don't want him to do it, but he still does it. And the thing is that Earl is so used to when he's swinging punches, the person backs up when he swings. But Bud is, like I said, is able to fight off the back foot. And once you think that Bud is going backwards, he's coming forward, and his knuckles are in your chin.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is like something that you really can't teach. Like we spoke about in the past with like running the football, you used to be a running back. Certain things you can't teach. When people make certain moves, you can't teach that. It has to be in them to do it. And Bud is like a Barry Sanders boxer. He makes the right move at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And where you thought he was going to be at, he's not there no more.
Right.
So a lot of those punches, it's like Bud is seeing Earl Spence in slow motion. His punches are telegraphed. And so by the time Earl punch gets there, Bud is already up in his face where he thought Bud would be going backwards. And so I don't see that changing in one fight. Like I said, he's gonna have to. That's all I give him is a puncher's chance. He can't win. He can't win the fight unless he knocks Bud out. He's not gonna win a round for round fight. I can't see it. It ain't happening. He's gonna have to hurt Bud and get a stoppage or knockout in order for him to win. He's not gonna win on points. It ain't happening.
Right. My last point on this, right? Before I want to jump into resumes, man, between the two fighters, right? But my last point on that, in multiple interviews, I've heard Earl Spence say that he can fight any kind of fight that he decides to, but he rather not use a lot of energy. And it seemed like not only has he, even though he's a puncher, he throws a lot of punches. He throws punches to where as though he's not wasting a lot of energy. Like he's not loading up on shots, so to speak. That's what he said out his own mouth. I believe that was on Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson. He
Okay.
said that, when he fights, even though it seems like he throws a lot of punches, he's not really using a lot of energy because those punches are simple, sharp, short punches that doesn't take a lot of energy away from him. But if he had to switch his style and load up more, that he would be willing to do so, which makes me think that in this rematch, whether it happens at 147 or 154, when he say that you will see a different Earl Spence, I hold on to that aspect of Earl Spence because I've seen it in the earlier fighting years where he would load up on multitude of shots and not be like a 1-2 punch type of person. I've seen it against Chris Algieri. I've seen it against Carlos Ocampo, and in some of his previous fights before then. So if Earl Spence has the volume and he's not throwing the jab out there, seeing what he's gonna do, body, head, and he's actually putting together a multitude of punches. Yes, it leaves room for counters, and we know Terrence Bud is one of the best in the business. But if they're getting into an exchange where both fighters are open to getting hit, I think Earl has a chance in a sense when you in an exchange like that, he can hit him with a good shot. But that's just one of the views that I have on it. But as far as the skill level goes, I do believe Terrence is a better boxer. I think he is a more intelligent boxer than Earl is when it comes to setting up certain things. But I still give Earl Spence Jr. A chance in that fight.
Okay, you give him a chance, but who would you put your money on? If you
I mean,
if you got I gotta ask it like this. I gotta ask it like this. Everything you got in your place of residence, if you had to put that up,
we
would you
talking 147 or 154?
154?
154.
154. Now you got the choice not to bet. You got three choices to bet one, on either fighter or not bet at all. I
Yeah,
pretty
me
much
personally.
say you will not bet at all.
Yeah, I won't bet nothing.
Exactly.
I'll just leave it up in the air, man, because just how it was going into the fight, nobody really knew. Everybody assumed it'd be 50-50. Obviously, it was like an 80-20 within that fight. But, generally in rematches, and that's in all sports, there is a different type of outcome. I don't think there has been rarely in a rematch, whether it's boxing or, well, I got to just stick with boxing because that is a single person sport. But when you do look at rematches when it comes to basketball, football, or even baseball, so to speak, there's always some type of adjustments or some type of knowledge that you learn from the opponent, and that's why I give. Earl that chance. I can't say 50-50 again, obviously, because we all seen what happened. We all wasn't blind and we saw what happened. But if I had to break it down from a percentage standpoint, I'll say 70-30, maybe 60-40 for the
Mm.
rematch. And
Yeah.
but at the same time, I still roll with Earl. I love Terrence as a fighter. I give him his props. It's just I pull for Earl because not only that, I would love to see a trilogy. So it
Well,
has
of
to be
course, I'm gonna
competitive.
give him a better. I would think that he would have a better outing than he had before, even though I think the outcome would be the same, is because you can't do much worse than he did. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was embarrassed.
yeah.
Ain't no question about it. It was an
No question.
embarrassing outcome, and so you can't do much worse than that. So I think that he will fare better in this fight.
Cool, man. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, 28 won, 22 knockouts. But beforehand, right? When Errol Spence fought Carlos Ocampo, he was
Okay.
he was then 22-0 with 13 knockouts.
Okay.
Errol Errol Spence stopped him in the first round, right?
Okay.
Errol Spence fought Sean Porter Jr. At the time he fought him, he was the WBC champion. 30
Mm-hmm.
wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 17 wins by way of knockout.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Danny Garcia, 36-3 with 21 knockouts. Kell Brook, who he won the IBF belt from, when he fought Kell Brook was 36-2 with 25 knockouts, or one, because he had only lost to
Oh, he was
Golovkin.
36. He was 36-1.
He had 36-1 because he lost to Golovkin prior to that, when he took the belt from him and he won. He stopped him in the 11th round.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey Garcia, though Garcia did jump up two weight
Two
classes,
weight classes.
two weight
Exactly.
classes, he still was
Two weight classes.
a superior boxer, fighter, so to speak. 39
He
and
was a
0
good boxer.
with 30 KOs. And
I
and a lot of people was down on Earl for allowing Mikey Garcia to last the whole fight,
yeah,
which
I
which
was
he
too.
which he said that he just wanted to show a different element of his game. He wanted to, not bully him, so to speak. He wanted to outbox him, which he clearly did in that fight. And then you had Ugas, who was 27-4 with 12 KOs and coming off of a victory beating Manny Pacquiao for the WBA championship, and Earl stopped him in the 10th round. Now, compared to your boy, Terrence Bud Crawford, I say those, let me see, 6 fights that I just mentioned, I say that resume is more solid than, let's say, 6 of Terrence's fights. His best fights, his most notable fights from his
Hmm.
Earl
Okay, go ahead.
Jr. resume is better than Terrence Bud Crawford.
Well, you see, you can't take it and say I'm gonna just make it to 6 fights. See,
Okay.
because you limiting a person's resume. You saying that you only can say jobs you had between a certain time.
uh,
No, no, we ain't
uh,
gonna do that one.
No, I
Oh,
mean, I don't care where you pick the fights from. I just believe just those. I mean, he had more fights, obviously, and Bud has 40 now.
yeah.
But I'm saying these 6 fights off of Earl
Experience counts,
resume.
right? Doesn't that count on your resume?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying the
So
six fights.
we ain't gonna limit it.
No, no, no. We
Yeah,
don't
we ain't
have to
gonna
limit
limit it.
turns.
Yeah.
We don't have to limit turns Bud Crawford's resume. I'm saying
Okay.
those six names are better than the 39 prior fights that Terrence had. I'm saying those 6 names from a resume standpoint is better than anybody that Terrence Bud Crawford has fought.
See, now you're trying to just condition the resume, right? And then like a lot of and I want to make it clear. I
Uh-huh.
like Earl Spence. Earl
True.
Spence is one of my favorite fighters.
Yep.
Uh, and so I want to make that clear. So I don't want anybody to think I don't like Earl Spence because I do.
Right.
But I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm keeping it objective. I'm not going to be like emotionally tied to a particular fighter.
Right.
But I'm just looking at the overall, and I'm not just taking what I hear some guys say and just going by what they're saying. Because one of the things that they use against Bud Crawford
Mhm.
is that when he fought the same people that Earl fought, they was, they try to make it seem like they washed up and all this type of stuff.
Nah,
Well,
I don't run with that.
they're still the same person. If you
Yeah,
want,
I don't
they
run with
still the
that.
same people. So you don't use that argument because these people had already, when Earl fought them, they had already lost. Outside of Mikey Garcia and, as you said, Carlos Ocampo, who was a never. I mean, he was an all right fighter, but I mean, come on, man, that's
Yeah.
Carlos Ocampo. I mean, but I mean, Chris Algieri you didn't mention, but he was a notable fighter.
Yep.
He was 21-2. He had only lost to Pac-Man Pacquiao
Mm-hmm.
and Amir Khan.
Yeah.
So before he fought Earl Spence. So I mean that's a notable win.
Yep.
But like I said, the only really to me notable win against an undefeated fighter was Mikey Garcia, who jumped up 2 weight classes to fight him.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I really, you know, when he beat Sean Porter, if it wasn't for that late knockdown, he probably would have lost the fight. It
It was
still
close.
was a
It definitely was close.
it still
Definitely.
was a split decision, even though he knocked Porter down, and it
Down.
still was a split decision.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And come on, Ugas, man, he fought a 42-year-old Pacquiao, man.
Hey man, he
Come
beat
on,
Keith
man.
Thurman. He beat Keith Thurman.
He fought a 42-year-old Pacquiao, man. Come on, man.
Hey, he beat Keith Thurman.
This man before he beat Pacquiao, this man wasn't even considered a top 50 fighter, probably. Come
Probably
on,
not.
man.
Probably not.
And Danny Garcia, I like Danny Garcia, but all his big fights he lost. Who he beat?
I'm
He
not
fought
sure.
Porter, he lost to Porter. He
He lost
fought
to
Thurman, he
Thurman.
lost to Thurman. He fought Spence, he lost to Spence. His
Right.
3 losses was his 3 biggest fights, and he lost all 3 of them.
Correct.
So even though he's a good fighter, I like Danny Garcia. Every big fight he fought, he lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Kell Brook had only lost 1 fight. He was 36-1 when Earl fought him. I definitely give him credit on that fight. I give him credit on all his wins, but I'm just saying we doing comparison here. But
Mm-hmm.
then when you go to
Right.
Bud, of course, I mean when he fought Ricky Burns for the WBO lightweight championship, Ricky Burns was 36-2,
He might have
36-2
been.
and 1,
He was
36-2
36
and 1
1. Okay.
when he fought Ricky Burns. Uh, his next big fight was Yoriokas
Mm-hmm.
Gamboa,
And boy. Yep.
23-0. I think he has 16 knockouts, and he knocked him out in the 9th round.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a notable win. Thomas Delorme, 22-1. They fought for the vacant junior welterweight WBO belt. He was able to TKO him. Victor Postal was 28-0.
Mm-hmm.
When he fought
Yeah.
Victor had the WBC
That's a
belt.
notable win right there for sure.
Yeah, 28-0, man. He gave him his first defeat. Then you want to bring up somebody beating Pacquiao, who was undefeated, Jeff Horn. I mean, even though I really think Pacquiao
Pacquiao
won
won
that
that
fight.
fight, man.
Yeah, I think Pacquiao won that fight too. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think Pacquiao won that fight, but he was undefeated. He was an undefeated champion. and Bud knocked him out. Ninth
Destroyed.
round knockout, won the title at welterweight.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we know that Bud was undisputed at junior welterweight,
Right.
so he won all the belts at junior welterweight. Then he fought down. People would say, man, the man was fighting on one leg.
You've been
Man,
defeated.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Jose Benavidez, he was fighting on one leg. The man was 27-0. After he was shot in the leg, he came back and had 2 knockouts. His next 2 fights were knockouts.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, at that time he was a reputable fighter. He was undefeated. He came off of 2 knockouts after he was shot in the leg. And when he fought Bud dispatched of him in the 12th round, knocked him out.
He actually gave Bud a better fight than Earl when you think about it.
Of course, yeah, he definitely gave him a better fight, but I think Bud was letting him hit him more than he let Earl hit him. He didn't let Earl do what he let Jose do,
Right.
you know. And this is just an honorable mention. The dude is a bum. He's just a big name, Amir Khan.
Oh yeah,
You
he's a
know what I'm saying?
fair bum.
He's a bum though. I mean, the man got over 6 losses or something, so he's a bum. But he did dispatch him in the 6th round. Then you had I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna just go to Kell Brook. Kell Brook was 39-2.
Mm-hmm.
His only 2 losses was to Triple G and Earl Spence.
Mm-hmm.
Bud knocked him out in the 4th round.
Right.
Okay, so that was a notable win. Sean Porter,
Mm-hmm.
never been stopped before.
Knocked him out too.
He knocked him out. Never
Mm-hmm.
been stopped. And last but not least is the man we're comparing resumes with.
Right.
Earl Spence, Earl the Truth, Spence Jr.
Mm-hmm.
28-0.
Right.
He gave him his first
Lost.
defeat. And
Mm-hmm.
it was by
A
knockout.
landslide. By knockout. Exactly.
So most of his big fights, he won by knockout. He didn't just beat the person, he beat him by knockout.
Yeah. That matters. That matters.
Yeah.
And let me make something clear. Just like how you made something clear. Let me make something clear to those that may not know. I mean, if they watch my content, then they know. I have never rooted against Terrence Bud Crawford ever in a fight besides this past fight. I think he is a beast. You know what I mean? And when I look at him, I see Floyd when I think adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Power, I look at Ray Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? His power.
Mm-hmm.
And the dog mentality, you might can wrap up a Hearns or a Roberto type of mindset, the way the dog type of dog he got in him.
Hagler, boy. Hagler was a dog.
Hagler, there it is, Hagler.
Hagler was
Yeah,
a dog, man.
there it is, right there, Marvin Hagler. So I mean, when you compare those three, you come out the pot with Terrence Bud Crawford. I think he has all three of those elements within his fighting style. Like you
Yeah.
say, he can fight from many different aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't really. I just say that when people brought up the subject, because I wouldn't, before they fought, that was one of the big talking points of many content creators, was that who has Bud fought? And I'm
Who
like,
was Avocado, man? Let's get to Avocado, man. Avocado, man. I'm thinking about all these fighters that Terrence knocked out, undefeated or not, right? If Earl
mm,
get in the ring with them, he does the same thing. That's how I look at it. Now,
but
the
you got to
one that they got in
understand.
common, Porter, it didn't happen that way. I think Earl fought Porter's fight, which was basically staying right in front of him, and they going blow for blow. That's how that fight went. So I was surprised he fought Porter that way. Porter had a lot of success too, but he fight his fight. You know what I mean? And which is sometimes he's standing in front of you, but most times he's using the ring. He's using how he about to set you up. And I think once he changed his style against Porter, that's when he got the knockout. Because Porter was up on that fight.
I mean,
Porter
I'm
was
not
winning the
saying
fight.
that I'm not going to say that Porter wasn't up on that fight, but when he knocked Porter out, or TKO'd him in them last round or so, last round or two, when he started standing toe to toe with Porter. See, Porter was doing a little bull rush, his little
Yeah.
Tasmanian devil bull
Mhm.
rush, and he was very successful in the earlier rounds. But the last couple of rounds, the ninth, 10th round, and stuff like that, Bud started standing in front of him and
Mhm.
was like, okay, you think you just gonna go with me like that?
Right.
So Bud was like, okay, and he was just catching him.
Yeah.
And Sean was frustrated because Bud was able to catch him with punches
He didn't
that
see.
he didn't see. You're right. He didn't
Mhm.
see.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when he went down, it wasn't that he was hurt. He just was like, damn, he knocking me down. And I mean, I'm not expecting to get knocked down. You know what I'm saying? And it's frustrating when you fighting somebody and they're not really hurting you, but still you find yourself on your ass. You know what I'm saying?
Already.
Already,
Yeah.
you know.
So yeah, I give it to Bud in this sense, and I'm gonna leave it alone. Um, right now, I think he's the best fighter of this generation. When it comes to that class, from I guess I got to go from where we started. Well, these 130, 140, yeah, 140 to 147. He's the
Well, he
best in that.
started at 130.
130. Okay, so from 130 to 147, he has been the best fighter. He hasn't been the most lucrative fighter, but
Mhm.
he is skill wise. If I had to pick a top three, I gotta put him, Shakur, and maybe Tank Davis at 1, 2, 3 in that particular order. Um, but he's definitely made his mark in the sport of boxing. He will be a Hall of Fame legend. But I got Earl getting his ass at 154. Sign the contract, Terrence. Don't stay at 147. Keep your 147 open. So therefore, because they're not going to vacate your belts just yet, it's too soon. Fight Earl at 154. If you can, come back down to 147. Fight Jerron Boots Ennis. If Boots Ennis fights, let's say Keith Thurman or whoever else is out there for him to fight at the moment, and whoop them, then if you whoop Earl back at 154, come down and defend your undisputed championship belts to fight Jerron Boots Ennis. You whoop Ennis, I already give you your due. But if you whoop Jerron Boots Ennis, who I think skill for skill can match you, then I just hands down to say, other than Floyd Money Mayweather, uh, I think you the best fighter, TBE, as Floyd Money Mayweather would say, TBE, the best ever.
Yeah, I mean, you can have your arguments, but I do think that that would be an extremely tough fight for Bud Crawford against Boots Ennis. I think Boots Ennis is a hell of a fighter. I think he's a very highly skilled fighter. He's been fighting all his life. From what I hear, he's a gym rat. He has power in both hands. He's a defensive fighter. He has many tools in his toolbox, and I think he knows when to use certain tools in certain situations. He's You don't find him off balance when
Mm-hmm.
he throws punches. He knows how to maintain his footing when he's throwing punches, and that's key when you fighting somebody like a Bud Crawford, because Bud Crawford catches you when you slipping.
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
I think that'll be a straight chess match, man.
yeah, I believe it'll be a good fight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this, man. Hey, man. I know nobody ain't tuning in right now, but when you see this video, we gonna do this at least twice a week, man. It's your boy, Sports God TV, where we talk sports like religion. And I'm out. Until the next time, man. They be wrecking.